Hey folks, welcome back to our Dice Tower preview. I'm Mark.
And I'm Randy.
Today we're taking a look at No Escape.
No Escape is brought to you by Games. It plays 2 to 8 players, ages 13 and up, and each game takes about 30 minutes to play.
Great. Well, let's see who can be the first to make it to the escape pod and survive. In No Escape, you've recently arrived at your new appointment, the Space Station Titan. However, things are not going well. The space station is under duress. The core is melting down, gas is flooding the corridors, and you must get off immediately. However, there is only one escape pod left. So you're going to be using tiles to make your way through the dark corridors and escape. However, you want to be the first one to reach that escape pod because others will be trying as well. You must outwit your opponents and get off the space station fast. Now the game sets up really fast, just like the gameplay. Gameplay is also really fast. You're going to take the main tile and put it in the middle of the board. There's a side for 2 to 4 players and a side for 4 to 8 players. Then everyone receives 3 energy tokens and 3 tiles along with your meeple, which starts in the middle of the board. All right, before we jump into a turn, we got to look at some of these different tiles that you're going to be laying out to expand and to explore your way off the ship.
And you'll be laying these tiles out both to benefit your path as well as sabotage your opponents.
Absolutely. The sabotage your opponents is key.
It is very key because you have only a limited number of moves on each round to keep your opponents from going off the board. So using these tiles wisely is key. So let's look at the 3 different types of tiles you have. The first is a standard maze tile. And a maze tile has a path on it. Now this path might be straight line. It might have 1 to 5 different spaces on it. It might be curving. It might be a circular path. It might be a T intersection. In any case, a maze tile is something that allows you or one of your opponents to walk down these corridors and potentially seek the exit. Now there are 2 other types of tiles which are very, very key in planning your strategy. One of these tiles has just words on it and it has writing at the top in white, and this is a standard action tile. At the beginning of your turn, we'll talk about that in a second, but this will give you a chance to perform some special action. It might involve drawing more tiles, it might involve replacing or moving a tile on the board, but it basically disrupts the normal flow of a turn. The other type is called a stop action tile, and this has a red title at the top. What this does, this allows you to play a special action during one of your opponent's turns. So it's very key in stopping them from using a really good dice roll or putting down a tile that you really don't want them to put down.
Now, the first thing you can do on your turn, actually it's an option, you don't have to do this on your turn, is play one of your action tiles. Now, there's a ton of different action tiles. However, I picked one of my favorites to show because it's called Buried Alive. It's super thematic as things start collapsing in the ship, right? And what you're gonna do is you're gonna put this in front of one of your opponents, which then is going to target player will no longer be able to move on their turn, on that next turn. And then once that turns over, the tile gets discarded. So there's a ton of different actions and different possibilities here that allow you to swap places with other players and things of that nature. So that's the first thing you have the opportunity to do on your turn.
Now, if you don't have one of these tiles, don't sweat it. It probably means you have more maze tiles, which give you more selections on what you're putting where. So the next part of your turn is not an option. You must place a maze tile, and we talked about those earlier, a maze tile on the board. Now, you might place these in front of one of your opponent's paths to make their path a little bit longer or more complicated, or even put a dead end there.
Right.
Or you might put one in front of yours. And the reason you would do that, even if it makes the path a little bit longer, is, for example, a T intersection or a roundabout would give you more options and make it more difficult for your opponents to block you. So that's the next thing, and you must perform that. If you don't have any maze tiles that can be put down, and it's important that they're put down legally.
Yes.
You can't if there's an established corridor, you can't put a maze tile with a non-corridor side up against the corridor. So if you can't place any maze tiles legally, what you'd have to do is you discard all of your tiles, and then you start drawing until you can play a maze tile.
Yep. And then the next thing possible that you can do on your turn is use one of your energy tokens, which directly relates to your jetpack.
That's right.
So this can allow you to actually jump over other players. Otherwise, you would push them in your moving attempt.
Right.
So this allows you to jump over them, or gives you an extended move.
Actually, it does both.
It does both, right.
So if you use your energy token before you roll your dice, it will be a +1 to your movement. And like Mark said, you will actually move over the other player instead of pushing them forward.
And you have 3 of these tokens, and there are ways to recharge your power throughout the game. And there's different icons on the board, which we'll talk about in a minute.
So after you've chosen whether or not you're going to spend one of your 3 energy tokens, if you have any available, what you'll do next is you'll roll your dice. Now there are 2 dice, a red and a white one, and each of them has between 1 and 3 on it. So you have at most the ability to roll a 6, and if you used your energy token, you could move up to 7, but that's never the case for me. I always roll like a 3 or something like that.
However, those last couple games,
I did some pretty good rolling. That's right. Once you've rolled, what you have to do is you move your character, your little man, or person, I should say, down the corridors. And when you get to places where there's a choice in different directions, if you end on an intersection, you must choose your direction. It's always important that your person moves forward. He doesn't get a chance to turn around on his own volition. Remember, you've got the core exploding, and so he's running down these corridors in a panic. And you don't get the option to turn around unless you hit a dead end.
Yeah, or if you have a special action that allows you to change direction. That is a possibility as well.
That's right. After you've completed your movement, the last thing you do on your turn is to draw up to 3 tiles. Now it's possible you've played an action tile on your turn so you can draw extra tiles, and you might finish your turn with 4 or more tiles. If that's the case, don't worry about it. You don't ever have to discard tiles in this game, but the key is you end your turn with at least 3 tiles in your hand.
Indeed. And so then play continues this way, round and round, until someone makes it off the station. And how you do that is by basically jumping off the end of a tile. So this is why you're extending tiles in front of your opponents, hoping your path to victory or path to the escape pod is shortest off the ship. Now, there are a couple different icons on this board that are of note, and these are icons that you will be using regularly throughout the game. The first one we're going to look at is the teleport location, and generally you're going to be using the ones that are white, because the ones that are white are the ones that allow you to teleport all over the ship wherever you want to go. Now, wherever there's a yellow teleport icon, that's just a receiver. You can only end up there. You can't beam out of that location.
The other type of location on the board is called a control center, and it's got more of a square icon. And like Mark said before, there's both a white version and a yellow version. The control centers, when they're white, do 2 different things. They allow you to recharge all of your energy tokens. So you turn them from the red side to the green side, and they're all available for use from that point forward. And that's true for the yellow ones or the white ones. The white ones, though, do an additional thing. They let you draw one of these, what they call path tiles. And these path tiles have 2 spaces on them, and they're designed so that you can lay them down on other tiles that have straight paths on them and have either 1 or 3 steps on them. And you can lay them down to create a T intersection. Now, this can be very, very key because what was once a corridor that was basically just a chute, you can't get out of it. This allows you to have kind of an emergency exit.
Or secret passage off the ship, right?
So putting those down at key places can allow you, but potentially also your opponents, to get out a little bit quicker.
Now, it's important again to note that there are stop tiles. Randy talked about these earlier, but these are actions that you can perform outside of your turn that stop your opponents when they're trying to do something awesome. Like, let's say Randy rolls a movement of 6 and uses jetpack for a 7. I can make him re-roll that if I have the appropriate action tile.
Yeah, these are the stop action tiles that you only play on your opponent's turns, and as Mark said, they're great for when an opponent has either had a great roll or put down a great tile that might be benefiting them or blocking you. These stop action tiles will prevent that, or at least make them roll again or something like that. Now, it's important to know, though, there is a trade-off, because if you put these in your hand, you are compromising the number of maze tiles in your hand, and as a result, if you find yourself without any legal actions for the mandatory placement of a maze tile, you have to get rid of your entire hand.
So hoarding can be bad.
It can be bad. So I think the game has a very clever trade-off mechanism there.
All right, folks, just a reminder once again, this has been a Dice Tower paid preview, and everything you've seen here has been in prototype form. So keep a close eye on the campaign for any changes that still may occur. Now, with that said, this game has a lot of take that in it, and it truly is a fast-paced action tile laying game, and you really do get the sense that you are frantically running to get outside of the ship and be the first one to that escape pod.
And I think it's great it supports 8 players, and it does so very well because turns are so quick. It also introduces, the more players you play with, it introduces the concept of social irresponsibility.
Indeed.
Because the idea is, well, I could block Mark, he's all the way around the table, he's 5 players away from me, or I could just do something that benefits me a little bit better. I'll swap tiles so I'm a little bit closer to the end, and I'll let the people after me worry about blocking Mark. And so there is that nice take that, but also benefit yourself sort of thing.
And I do think that those higher player counts, that it just gets crazy, and the mayhem is awesome.
Especially since you end up, when you're running down the corridor, if you're not using your jetpack, you're pushing your opponents closer to the exit. So when you spend those, and whether you detour to a control center to rejuvenate those energy tokens, is all part of the strategy of winning the game.
Absolutely. All right, folks, so ultimately, though, if this looks like a game that would be of interest to you, I'm sure they would appreciate your support. So I think that's it from us.
That's it.
Until next time, we'll see you at the table.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching the Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.